Hey, welcome to the Steve and Crypto Show, presented by thestevestrout.com. I'm Steve.
I'm Crypto Zoo. Thanks, guys, for listening. We are on episode 17 now.
17. You guys caught episode 16. We introduced our promo segment and had our buddy Lee from Night of the Horror File podcast on to talk about his show. And we talked about some movie news and other little tidbits that hopefully you guys listened and checked it out. And hopefully you guys continue to listen. And if you are and enjoying the show, go check out our Buy Me a Coffee page, buymeacoffee.com/Steve Crypto. And consider contributing a little something, kick us a little something, help us improve the show and make the show better and upgrade stuff and all that good things. We've gotten a few contributions, and I think we mentioned before that, like our first couple helped us put an ad in one of our favorite monster magazines, which we'll talk more about in the next few episodes, like before the issue comes out, so you could get this sweet ass monster magazine and see our name in there and be proud of us and all that good stuff.
And know that your contribution helped to having that in there as well.
Absolutely. Well, this episode, we have a fun guest. We have Addison Binek, the man behind, one of the creators behind the movie Psycho Ape. It's if you're into like trauma movies and stuff like that, it's very very trauma-esque. It's not a trauma movie. Got to stress that, but it's in that style. It's like a horror comedy. It's pretty popular for indie film. People are liking it. People are having fun time with it. It got best kill at the Independent Horror Movie Awards, which is a pretty cool little tag to have on your movie. Reading through lots of reviews, I see a lot of talking about this movie. It's crazy. It's like a beautiful disaster. Like it's like you shouldn't like it, but you love it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I watched it over the weekend, and it's definitely fun one to to just watch. Like I say, if you have a family, to watch on your own time when the kids are asleep. It's like what would you call, like a Saturday night, like almost like not a creature feature exactly, but it's up there with that level of
it's a B horror movie.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but it don't take itself too seriously.
Exactly. It's fun.
But like I was saying, like there's a lot of I read a bunch of reviews and stuff about the movie before I watched it, and words and phrases stood out. Like a few of the words that popped out, and a lot of them were sleazy or goofy, gory, cheesy, lowbrow, self-deprecating, which all they all describe this movie very well. And like I said, it sounds like on paper it's like, wow, I should not enjoy this, but I loved it. You know what I mean? And so yeah, we have Addison Binek, who is the man behind the movie. We chat with him. We'll run that in a few minutes. Before we get to that, I want to remind you guys to head over to our friends at Fright Rags for all your horror swag, t-shirts, and all the cool stuff they have.
Yeah, they've Fright Rags has been bringing you the best in horror apparel and accessories since 2003. A long time, longer than I thought they've been around. Like it's crazy to think they've been around this long. And they have a wide range of products for your favorite creature features, slasher flicks, cult classics. They have collections from John Carpenter's Halloween, Universal Monsters, Night of the Living Dead, Creepshow, Twin Peaks, Evil Dead, so much more.
Stay tuned this month at frightrags.com. They'll be releasing new collections for Garbage Pail Kids, Twin Peaks, as well as the long-awaited return of the Jaws crew shirt, which is pretty cool. And it's all officially licensed and available now at frightrags.com. And Steve and Crypto Show listeners get 10% off when they use the code SteveCrypto10 at checkout. Steve Crypto 10. That's the number 10.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get to our chat with Addison Binek and hear about Psycho Ape.
Yeah, let's get to it.
Hello, this is Agoro, host of the Agoro Show, and you are listening to the Steve and Crypto Show. So keep your ears open and your mouth shut.
Hey, we're here on the Steve and Crypto Show talking with Addison Binek about his indie horror, I almost say comedy film.
It's a comedy, yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about Psycho Ape a little bit and maybe some other stuff. How did let's just jump right in and talk about how the movie came to be.
Well, a couple of years ago, I actually dreamt up the premise of the film. It was just kind of out of nowhere. A friend of mine had a gorilla suit that he would wear to Halloween parties and stuff like that. And so I had a dream one night where I was filming him in the gorilla suit and chasing somebody with a giant butcher knife. So when I woke up, I thought of the title Psycho Ape because you think of giant butcher knife, you think of Norman Bates, from Psycho, and then there's an ape involved. So it was just that simple, Psycho Ape. And that was 2017. And then not too long after that, I told them about my dream. I thought this has potential to be a film, some kind of low budget slasher comedy. So we went out one night and got a couple beers. And while we were drinking, we wrote the opening scene of the movie that involves, teen girls at a slumber party. I love the Slumber Party Massacre franchise. And those movies are always funny because they cast girls who are in their, 20s, possibly even 30s, but it's still supposed to be like a teen girl slumber party. So that, and they try to play it for real. But so we wanted to kind of parody that concept where it's a girl, it's a teen girl slumber party played by girls who are much older than teenagers. And so, the ape crashes the party and there's, a literal slumber party massacre sequence in the beginning with the ape. And that was our opening scene. But we shelved it. And that particular friend of mine, he passed away about a year later. So I didn't think we were going to make the movie. I didn't think I was going to make the movie. I pretty much thought, well, Psycho Ape is, done. We wrote an opening scene. It was funny. Now we're just I'm not going to make the movie. Not without him, He had the gorilla suit and everything, and I was writing it with him. But then like another year passed. And I was friends with another filmmaker, Greg DeLiso. And he made a movie called Hectic Knife, which is currently being distributed through Troma on Blu-ray and streaming. And I reached out to him because I had never made a movie before. Psycho Ape is my first feature. I've done other stuff. Like I've got 200 videos on YouTube because I used to do like Mystery Science Theater, riff tracks type videos, movies. It's called Movies to Watch on a Rainy Afternoon. And I would riff on and make fun of cheesy B movies like Mystery Science Theater or riff tracks. And after about 120 episodes of that, I thought, okay, maybe it's time to make my first feature film. And so I pitched him the idea of collaborating on Psycho Ape because he already has knowledge of finishing a feature film, Hectic Knife. So we started to finish writing what my other friend and I began. So we had an opening scene, but we didn't have the rest of the movie other than we knew we wanted to parody Halloween. We knew we wanted to have like a Dr. Loomis type character. who was going to be a zookeeper and had been like the keeper of the ape all these years, as if the ape was Michael Myers. So we always just kind of knew that it was going to be sort of a parody of Halloween, but instead of Michael Myers, it's a guy in a gorilla costume trying to play an ape. And that was the basic concept. But when I started collaborating with Greg and we were writing the script for that, then it turned into like, okay, now we're going to do a parody of King Kong, and we're going to do a parody of Nightmare on Elm Street, and we're going to parody all kinds of other famous horror films. And we watched the John Landis movie Schlock before production, because that's John Landis's first film that he made when he was 21, years before Animal House or Blues Brothers or anything like that. And it's really not a very good movie, but it is a comedic killer Bigfoot movie. And we just kind of said, whatever we make with Psycho Ape, let's just make it better than that, and that was just kind of our goal, really, was to just make a better movie than Schlock and make a bloody, funny, Mel Brooks style killer ape film. And that's just what we set out to do. That was the goal.
Right. So you sort of answered a question I had about your filmmaking background. The one thing I really noticed about the movie is it was almost like you weren't taking yourself too serious, like a lot of filmmakers would with, putting out a horror movie. Some of them you feel like they're trying to be too serious about it. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
But I felt like you guys weren't really pushing that, trying that so hard. But it was like you guys shot the movie really well. Like you captured the scenes and everything. Like you guys are pros, but you guys are just fucking around, basically.
Well, I mean, we do have experience. Like I went to film school. Greg went to film school. Greg, he had made a movie already, so he had experience actually making a film. I've been shooting stuff and putting it on YouTube for years. So it wasn't like we just decided overnight or one day, like, hey, we're going to just make a movie. We had knowledge of crafting our own super, super low budget films and stuff and videos for YouTube and things like that. I'm an editor, Greg is an editor. We're both, we write our own stuff, shorts and things like that. But yeah, we shot it with a mini DV camera from, I think, 2009, 2010. It's a little bit older now, but it was shot on tape. Like we didn't use any filters or anything to make it look like VHS. It was basically shot on VHS in the year 2019. So, that's why it has that lo-fi feeling. It was totally on purpose, because the movie also is kind of making fun of just, low budget horror films or whatever, indie movies that get made today, and they're just like 2 hours long with monotonous dialogue and not enough kill scenes, or they think that they're better than the audience because it's like artistic or something. And it's like, you can shoot that in 4K, sure, and the image will look great, but I want to be entertained, have goofy, funny dialogue, have characters, have a kill scene every 2 minutes if you're making a horror film. That's the stuff that I'm into, and that's what I want to see. Because I go to horror conventions and I buy independent horror films from various filmmakers, and I come home with a giant stack of like 10, 15 movies, and I usually flip them because they're terrible. And I usually only like about 2 or 3 of what I buy. But I see that they're popular, and I see that these people, make a lot of money making these movies. And it's like, how, like, I don't get it. I mean, sure, they have their niche, but I don't belong in their fan base. So we just kind of set out to make our own indie movie with, a gorilla killing people with bananas, and you can see the seam on the back of the costume, every time he turns around. or you can see the sneakers on his feet because we gave up trying to get him to wear the monkey feet because they always just fell off anyway. So our attitude was basically like, you're trying too hard, or we're trying too hard. Don't care about that, because we watch movies that sell at horror conventions, and it's like, those people don't care about that either, you know? So let's make fun of people not caring about like their schlocky little indie film, and let's do that, like amp it up by 1,000.
Luckily, the horror community is kind of welcoming to that sort of thing. You know, you can't say that every movie fan is into kind of B grade films or movies that are kind of considered so bad they're good, that sort of thing. Right. But at least people like us that are big horror fans, we kind of walk into that and expect it, or we understand that that's the outcome.
Like I love horror movies that are so bad they're good. But yeah. I was just sick of coming home from like all these horror conventions with a stack of movies. And it's like, these are so bad that they're unwatchable, or they're so bad because these people didn't know what they were doing. And they're taking themselves way too seriously. Like, you're not making the next Friday the 13th. You're not making the next classic, slasher film or monster movie. Ease up a little bit, throw some gore, like some goofy gore or some funny dialogue our way, because I watch tons of stuff, and it's like, these people thought they were making a masterpiece just because they're shooting it in 4K, but this movie is boring as fuck.
Yeah. At least some of the creators go into it knowing, like, they have the actors maybe being over eccentric, and they know, like, this is it's going to be over the top. Let's at least kind of give into that vibe.
Right. Yeah. We wanted to embrace the vibe of, we know that this is stupid, and we want the audience to know from the opening shot, this is going to be a very stupid movie. And we know it's stupid. But I watch a ton of movies where it's like, these people weren't making a stupid movie on purpose. It just ended up being really stupid.
Yeah, they thought they had, like you were saying about people thinking it's art, like they thought they had this work of art, and it was just trash. Like, yeah, like this movie, like literally from the get-go, in the opening credits, you warn us that the movie is nonsense.
Yeah,
and like,
because
this is gonna be dumb, but
we did, we took ourselves seriously enough that we paid our actors because they are actors. And we didn't want to treat them like they were just like buddies of ours. Like, we paid them. And, we did travel out to New York. We spent some time out there, and we filmed out there. And we'd spent a lot of time editing the film and, doing, crappy effects shots, but they're there. But, we just wanted everyone to be in on the joke, like from the very beginning, telling people like, it's not that we didn't care when we were making this movie. We just knew that this movie was going to be so lo-fi and so stupid that whatever dumb thing that we put in here, just know it's on purpose.
And you put, it was, the thing that made it good was that you put enough of the stuff that that you guys love, the good gore, the funny shit. You put enough to keep it entertaining throughout. It didn't get boring at any point.
Right. We wanted our goal as well was to keep it like at 70 minutes or less. We had a whole outline that was even longer than, there was more material that we wrote that we didn't shoot, because we realized at a certain point we had an initial rough cut and it was already an hour long. And we were like, wow, if we shoot this entire like outline, this entire script that we have, we're going to have like a 90-minute Psycho Ape. And we don't want to do that. We didn't want to have a 90-minute Psycho Ape. We thought 70 minutes or less is the perfect like time for this kind of film, because it is so lo-fi and because it is so dumb that people are going to probably they're going to stop caring after a certain point, because they're just going to get sick of it and they're going to want to move on to the next thing. So we settled at 64 minutes. Like the movie is 64 minutes long. That's like 4 minutes of end credits, because there's like outtakes, and we funded the movie with a Kickstarter, so everyone's name is at the end. But so it's a 60-minute movie with like 4 minutes of end credits, but we didn't want to bore people even with the end credits, so there's bloopers throughout the entire 4 minutes of the end credits. And so they're you're still laughing at shit that's happening just during the end credits, because it's all just outtakes. And because a lot of times people didn't quite know what we were going to be filming next. Like sometimes we would do a take, and that's like what we had written, and it's like, okay, now improvise something. And usually whatever somebody improvised what ended up in the movie. You can tell there's tons of stuff in the movie that are like bloopers, but we sold them as scenes, but they're totally bloopers. They're people fucking up their lines and stuff, but we thought that's way funnier than what we wrote, so we're just gonna use that instead. And
it worked.
Yeah, like I'm a big fan of Ed Wood. I'm a big fan of Trauma, and so that kind of stuff. Ed Wood didn't do a take two, so if somebody kicks over a cardboard coffin in a graveyard in Plan 9 from Outer Space by mistake, he didn't shoot it again. And that was kind of our mentality as well, is if something doesn't work, we're going to just use it anyway. If somebody flubbed their line or something, we're just going to use it anyway. Because, again, who cares? Like, this is just a stupid guerrilla movie, and we just want to make it funny. So use every shot where the ape costume is, like, ripped and you can see the seam. Just use it all.
Yeah, there's all these little moments throughout too that are just like they're good, and I'm glad they're in it, but they're just like why moments. Like for example, like the little roach in the blood puddle. It was like that scene,
just, like that was because we filmed just right on the streets, right on the sidewalk of New York City.
Right.
And, we covered this dude in blood and had his dead body covered in, banana peels to make it look like he got stabbed by 12 bananas. And there was just fake blood all over the sidewalk. And this roach literally just ran through the puddle of blood, and it was having a tough time walking through. So I grabbed a shot. Like, that was just a total, we didn't push the roach into there. It wandered into the fake blood on its own and got stuck, so we filmed it.
That's awesome. I just thought it was like this. I thought it was like a moment when there was like, let's make this little like artsy shot, but no, it just a moment that just happened. And it just happened and
smelled sweet, because it was fake. It was fake blood, so it probably smelled sweet and it wanted it, so it wandered in that puddle and got stuck because it was so sticky. And
it's great.
After we got the shot, we did flick it out of the fake blood, so it didn't just drown.
You had a couple things that just happened to work out for you, the roach in the blood puddle, and then just the dialogue from people that you said they just threw in off the fly and it worked. It's great when you have little things like that aren't planned that stay in the film.
There's a lot of stuff in the film that wasn't planned. There's one of the newscasters. He says, I always mess it up. He says that his name is, I know his real name, but in the movie he flubbed his line and he said his name was like Geltroy. Okay. The character's name was originally written as Geltroy, like Stackhouse or something, and that was supposed to be his newscaster name, but he said Geltroy Shithouse by mistake, and we thought that was funny, and we didn't correct him. So we were like, all right, that character's name is now Geltroy Shithouse because that's what he said. So we didn't do a take two, and it's just that's his character's name now. And he didn't realize his mistake until afterwards.
No, it's not a mistake.
Yeah.
So that you say, you know, you didn't do a take two in that scene, you know, when he flubbed his name and all this and that. Are there any scenes from the movie where you had to reshoot it multiple times to get it the way you wanted it, or you're just like, fuck it, use it?
I think we just did the fuck it, use it for, I don't know, 99% of everything that's in there. Because there's not a whole lot that I can recall that we had to redo it again. Especially like any special effects scene where someone gets stabbed by a banana or has their limbs cut off by a banana. We didn't have time to do more than one take because either we were in New York and we had a lot of footage that we had to get in New York while we were there, because we were only there for about 4 days with Bill Weeden and Kansas Bowling, because then we had to come to Michigan, where we live, to film about 4 or 5 days here in Michigan, and that's all we had with them. We only booked them for 9 days, so we filmed 9 days straight. 4 or 5 days in New York and then 4 or 5 days in Michigan. So if something didn't work, we would just have to either cut it later or think of an insert shot later to maybe fix something. But they're really, again, because we just knew that we were just making something dumb and the effects didn't matter anyway, that if an effect didn't work, shower it in CGI blood later and cover up the fact that maybe that nub or that stump doesn't look very good or something like that. And it just doesn't matter because the cartoon aspect of it, where like there's CGI blood, but then sometimes there's like actual fake blood that, we made ourselves with Caro syrup and red dye. It just helps the tone of the film where, it is kind of just supposed to be a live action cartoon, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit or something, where, somebody gets bonked on the head and they see stars, spinning above their head. Like that shit happens in our movie. And, people don't put that in their slasher film.
So you mentioned people getting stabbed up bananas in those scenes. You actually got an award for best kill at the Independent Horror Movie Awards. Yep. Which scene was that? Which kill was it?
They picked two. There's a scene where there's this teenage couple that are making out on a couch. And I had this idea where in Friday the 13th Part 2, there's a scene where a couple is having sex in bed and Jason sneaks up behind them and shoves a spear through one of their backs, and they're on top of each other. So the spear goes all the way through the top of their back, through the bed, and you see the point come out from underneath the bed and stick into the ground, and blood dribbles out. So I thought, take that sort of idea, but now have a couple making out, and when they're kissing, the ape can come up behind them with a banana and shove it through one of the back of their heads, and it'll come out the back of the other person's head. So they're stuck together like a shish kebab. And so we shot that, and it won Best Kill for the Independent Horror Movie Awards. And the other one that won Best Kill was very basic trauma-style cantaloupe head crush, where this girl gets knocked to the ground, and the ape stomps on her head, and we just filled a cantaloupe with Caro syrup and put a wig on it. He stomps on a cantaloupe full of fake blood, and I guess the combination of like the sound effect and just the way that it was edited, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I've only seen the film once in a movie theater, but that did get a big reaction. So I wasn't surprised when that one won for Best Kill. And I was just glad, that the banana shish kebab was even nominated, and then because that was one that I was proud of.
That's a really unique kill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but of course, when we did was we took one banana and we cut it in half, and we attached the tail end of the banana to the back of the girl's head, and had like the middle chunk of banana sort of they were kind of like a Chinese finger trap, where one end of the banana is in his mouth and another end of the banana is in her mouth, and so they're stuck together. But the banana now looks like it's 7 inches long, because it's totally ridiculous, because we took one banana and we cut it in half and made it longer, because you have to show the tail end, but you have to show enough of it for it to read on camera. And then when you show the middle piece, sort of like in between their mouth, that has to be long enough to read on camera too. So now you've got this very ridiculously long banana that is not as long as it was 2 seconds ago when it got stabbed. But again, that's just part of the comedy. And then when the tail rotates, that was an accident. That was the prop breaking, and because they're stuck together and there's blood coming out of their mouth and you see the banana sticking out, but then the tail twists and almost falls off, because we only had it attached with toothpicks in her hair and shit like that.
Right.
But we embraced the fact that the prop disconnected, and we added in a door hinge sound effect. So it's yes, that prop almost broke, but here's a comedic door hinge sound that's sort of celebrating, hey, this prop almost broke.
Were there any kill scenes that you guys filmed that didn't make it into the movie, or were there any that you had planned that you didn't get to do?
Definitely lots of kills that were planned, but we didn't get to do. There are no deleted scenes for the film, because we would kind of edit as we were filming to sort of gauge how long the film was becoming. So we only really shot what we needed, rather than shoot too much and have to cut stuff out later. So we just, we shot a whole bunch of kill scenes first. That was the first stuff that we shot for the movie, were basically all of the kill scenes. And then when we realized that we had quite a few, that's when we booked Bill in Kansas, and we're like, okay, now we have to shoot the meat of the movie with their storyline and all that stuff. But the kill scenes did come first, and we just, when we realized how many we had, we kind of just called it, and we're like, we have others scripted and other people wanted to participate, but we just didn't get around to filming those ones.
Right. So you brought up Bill in Kansas. How did you bring them into the movie? Was it were they excited about being part of this, or was it just pay me, let's just do it and get it over with?
I don't know.
I know they've both been in trauma stuff, so they're they're been involved in ridiculousness and crazy movies. So
yep. Bill, I met him 2 years ago now, almost. Like I was saying before, I used to do a movie riffing show, and that caught the attention of Trauma. And I did 2 episodes of a show called Masterpiece Theater, where I would take Trauma films. I had 2 puppets like Mystery Science Theater, and it was a talking box of popcorn and a talking film reel, and they sat on either side of me, and we would watch Trauma films and riff on those. Lloyd Kaufman was okay with it. He picked the movies. But 2 years ago, there was a screening set up by a fan who he wanted to play Sergeant Kabukiman, the movie that Bill Weeden is kind of famous for, because he's the villain in Sergeant Kabukiman. And it was a double feature, Sergeant Kabukiman and Masterpiece Theater. So I flew out to New York, put up in a hotel. It was really cool and really nice, you know, and, you know, this screening was happening. So Bill was there too, and I met him for the first time. I've always been a fan of his, but we met for the first time, and we sat through Kabukiman. It was fun, and you know the whole point of like True Masterpiece Theater is like Mystery Science Theater, where you watch like a crummy movie and you know riff on it the whole time with you know your puppets with the silhouettes at the bottom of the screen. And the movie that we did first, Lloyd picked for us, and it's called The Battle of Love's Return. No one's heard of it. It's Lloyd's first movie that he made when he was like 25 years old in 1971. It's very bad, very boring. And even with our riffs, you know, it's still kind of a tough sit. But so Bill would kind of wander in and out of the theater because he told me that he thought our jokes were funny, but he could not watch Lloyd's movie because it was just so boring and so awful. So after the screening, I meet him out in the theater hallway. And he's like, you know, I thought what you were doing in there was funny. Lloyd's movie is terrible, but I like what you were doing. And if you are ever back in New York and like shooting a movie or something, hit me up. You know, I want to participate in whatever project, you know, you might be working on in the future. And this was right around the same time that we were developing Psycho Ape. Like we were we had already shot a bunch of kill scenes. So I was like, all right, Bill, well, listen, we actually are intending to come back to New York because we have a whole climax in the script that involves the ape, you know, being chased by this Dr. Zoomis character who's supposed to be the zookeeper version of Dr. Loomis from Halloween. We are going to come back to New York, you know, this summer because this was like April, May 2019. And I was like, you know, we're coming back in, you know, June, July, and we're going to film this chase scene through Times Square with the ape and, you know, Dr. Zoomis. So, you know, maybe you can have a cameo or something like a random person on the street. Whatever, you know, we'll get you in the movie in a cameo. But then when I came home from New York, you know, I told my writing partner, Greg, like, hey, you know, Bill Weeden wants to cameo in Psycho Ape. And it's like, well, he wants to cameo in the movie. Why not we just like, you know, he's an actual actor. Why not we just hire him as Dr. Zoomis? And so we did. Like we called him, put him on speakerphone, and
sorry, we had a little technical difficulty. You were discussing bringing Bill in as an actual character in the movie.
Yeah, when Bill said that you know, he wanted to be in the movie in some capacity, you know, initially I just thought cameo, you know, he wouldn't want to participate in a feature-length stupid killer gorilla movie. But, you know, we offered him the role of Zoomis and he took it. You know, he wanted to do it. He thought it would be funny. We showed him the outline and he, you know, he said, yeah, you know. But then with Kansas Bowling, she was a fan of, she is a fan of Greg's movie Hectic Knife. So when we reached out to her, she, you know, we only were offering her a cameo in the opening Slumber Party Massacre part. But she said, you know, if I'm going to participate in this film, I want to be in the whole thing. So that led to expanding her character and creating, like, she basically kind of became the Laurie Strode of our movie when she was only going to be a cameo in that first scene. But yeah, so when we got her on board and Bill on board, that's when we, you know, figured out like, okay, it's April, May right now. We've got these two people who want to be in the film, the full film. They're the two leads now. And, you know, let's pick a date. Let's start shooting. So we picked, you know, sometime in June, we sectioned out a 9-day shoot that summer. And we went to New York, filmed with them because they were both living in New York, drove back to Michigan with them in our car. So it was, you know, the five of us, like a 12-hour drive from New York to Michigan, the five of us, and got back here, put them up in a hotel, and then the next day just continued shooting, but, you know, in like my apartment and, you know, various other locations in Michigan. And eventually, time was up. We had to, send them back to New York on separate planes, and that was it. So, we had, all this footage with them now and all these random scenes with them now, and we had to sort of mix that together with all of the kill scenes that we had already shot. And a lot of the movie was just sort of constructed in editing, like in post-production, where, we created like the newscasters and stuff, and, had a bunch of kill scenes, like, be on the news and things like that. So a lot of the movie really was just kind of, we had an outline, we didn't shoot it all, but we had a basic idea of what the film was kind of going to be. And then we just had all these kill scenes that we knew, and we had all this stuff with Kansas and Bill that we knew. And so then Greg, he cut the movie last year while in quarantine. Everything shut down, and I couldn't really go hang out with him anymore. So he just kind of spent, the majority of the coronavirus quarantine just cutting the film. And, I don't know, 4 to 6 months later, the movie was basically just done. He edited the whole thing.
Well, being in the the middle of the coronavirus and having all that time to edit, I'm sure he was maybe a little thankful in a way that that seeing the bright side of the virus and having some time on his hands.
I think so, yeah, because there were some additional things that we still needed to shoot, but we just couldn't because everybody was quarantining. So we kind of had to wait until like August, September of last year to just shoot some small scenes, mainly just stuff at the end. But he had the majority of the movie was cut, and we just knew that we need like 2 minutes more of footage to explain certain things at the end of the film. So we just kind of made that up and knocked that out in like 2 days. And, that was like August was sort of the final shooting. And then we released the movie in October.
Did you guys do a big release event or anything for the movie?
No, we did have a,
well, the timing kind of, yeah.
Yeah, we did have a theatrical premiere. I worked something out with the owner of this local indie theater, but because this was back in October, seating was very limited to like 20%, so it averaged out to like, he could really only have like maybe 28 people in the theater or something like that. And because it's a small theater, it's a small indie theater, but we sold like 22 tickets, something like that. So we were close to selling out, but selling out would have been like 28 tickets just because couldn't have that many people, in the theater, and everybody had to be all spaced out and everything. But, so it has had a theatrical premiere back in October. No plans for another one anytime soon, but it is on Amazon Prime. You can buy DVDs from me, and I'm just on social media promoting this thing and sending it to festivals, and seeing who might show it later this year, because all these festivals are basically just going to be online festivals, I think, for a while. I know there's some like horror conventions that are going to be happening, but with like limited capacity and stuff like that, limited patrons. Maybe they'll show it. I don't know. We'll see.
Right. Well, I think for considering the budget, considering, like we mentioned, how you guys were serious about making the movie, but didn't take yourself that seriously. I think you guys made an entertaining movie, and we have a mutual friend, Lee Evans. He reviewed the movie for his Night of the Horror File he does the Night of Horror File podcast, but he blogs too and does reviews and stuff. But he pretty much sums up the movie, and I'm quoting him from his review. It says, Psycho Ape knows its strengths and uses them well. Addison and crew really have fun with their limitations. When you're working with a lower than shoestring budget, it's helpful to have a sense of self-deprecating humor, which I think that just like pretty much says it all. I think that's like the perfect like review of what this movie is.
Very appropriate review.
Oh yeah, it's been... I mean, because the budget was, we raised $7,000 with a Kickstarter, but most of that money was spent in New York because New York is expensive as hell, and just paying our actors. There goes the budget.
There it is.
Yeah. And buying bananas every week to shoot.
How many bananas did you go through?
I don't know.
There was no official banana tally or nothing.
No, we gave up after the first 3 weeks, I think. Because what we would do is we would shoot every Thursday for months, except the Bill in Kansas stuff.
Right.
Every Thursday was Psycho Ape Thursday for months before the coronavirus, of course. I want to say from maybe March 2019 until, I don't know, August or September of 2019 was Psycho Ape Thursday, that entire time. And then the 9 days that we shot with Bill in Kansas. And so every week we were going to the grocery store and buying bananas. So, I don't know. I have no idea.
Are you slightly traumatized now? Do you just never want to see a banana again?
I was for a while. After we wrapped the movie back, a couple months ago, August, I never wanted to see a banana again, but I am eating them again. My roommate plays the ape. We live in an apartment together. He is so over bananas because he plays the ape. So every week, he was stabbing people with bananas and running around in that stupid monkey suit. He is beyond over bananas. I bought some, and he was like, "Why'd you buy those?" And I was like, "Well, I kind of want to eat them, And
why'd you buy those?
Why did you buy those?
With one if you don't throw them away right now.
Because it was basically the movie's wrapped. Why would you ever buy a banana again? It's because I want to eat them. Because there would be certain weeks where if we bought a whole bunch of bananas on one Thursday and we would shoot with some of them that day, well, by the time you get to the next Thursday, those bananas that you bought the last Thursday are now brown and stinky. Yeah, you don't want to shoot with them now. So now you got to buy more. But it became so stupid because in that week from Thursday to Thursday, we could have eaten those bananas, but we had, I certainly had forgotten that they were food and not props. Because to me, they were murder weapons because we had been shooting this movie for so many months that they were props. Don't eat the props. Don't eat. We need them for Thursday. But then Thursday would come around and it's they're brown and rotten. We should have eaten these 3 days ago. And it's oh yeah, you can eat these. So that was pretty dumb.
Yeah. I was just thinking you could torment your roommate, by maybe leaving a banana in a puddle of blood, fake blood on his pillow or something like that for Psycho Ape Strikes Again.
Yeah, we kept the mask for the Psycho Ape, but the suit, that thing was destroyed. I mean, he couldn't have been happier to throw that thing in a garbage bag and toss it in the dumpster. Because, I mean, that costume was not, it wasn't very comfortable, first of all. It said one size fits all, but that's not true. Because the second day of shooting, he sat down and the crotch ripped. So that's why in the movie, when you see the seams of the crotch are flapping, It's because it ripped on day 2 of filming, and we were just like, well, I'm not buying another costume, so we're just gonna have to tough it out.
And that adds character to the film.
It doesn't. Yeah. Again, it just doesn't matter because when it turns around, you see that the costume has to be tied together with a string, right on the back. It wasn't a zipper costume; it was a costume that required tying a string to hold it on, and you can see that anytime the ape turns around, you can see the stupid strings. But sometimes you can see the crotch flapping, and that's because it ripped, and it's just like, we're not buying another costume.
Well, you guys definitely have the advantage working in that genre. You're not trying to be the newest Marvel film or something like that. You know what you're trying to accomplish in the end. And I kind of enjoy seeing those little mishaps and little things that maybe you didn't intend for the audience to see in the beginning, but then you're like, fine, it's it adds to the film. One that always comes to mind for me is Attack of the Killer Shrews. You can clearly tell that it's a bunch of dogs that they just added like extra,
right, they just put like rugs on them.
Yeah but it just makes me laugh, adds to the experience.
It's the whole the creativity that kind of draws you in. So how have the DVDs been selling?
Very well.
They're doing well.
Yeah, I mean, with our Kickstarter, we had pre-sold about 200 to generate that the $7,000 for the budget. And since the release of the film, we've sold an additional like 200 since October. And I sell about 10 a week, something like that. I'm always I wait until like midway through the week, like Tuesday, Wednesday, and I go to the post office with a giant bag just full of DVDs. Nice. Some people don't collect physical media, and that's why it's available on Amazon Prime as well. You can rent it or buy it there. But I sell the DVDs through eBay, or if people want to just message me on Facebook or something and want to buy a copy just directly from me, I'm cool with that too. But I mean, it seems to have gone over really well. I mean, it's got like an 8.8 or something on IMDb. We've only really gotten like 2 bad reviews, and one of the reviews, the person clearly didn't get it, so I can't really count that review. They didn't understand that it was a dumb comedy that was dumb on purpose, So I think they were looking at it as if it was supposed to be like a real serious movie about a killer ape, and it's like, you're insane.
Maybe they ignored the little introduction.
Yeah, they must have totally ignored the introduction and thought like, this is a serious horror film, and this ape, this is gonna be really scary.
There was so many
times. How do you kill somebody with a banana?
Yeah.
There was a lot of times through the movie that I was, watching it and like, I'm not supposed to like this, but I love it. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what is cool about movies like this. So like you mentioned, like Killer Shrews, like it's like this, it's not amazing, but it's like, somebody put something into it to entertain us, and it makes you appreciate it.
Yeah. And it takes the right type of person to appreciate it. Not everyone is going to watch and get it and understand, It really does. It takes the right type of people to appreciate it and know what they're getting into.
Like, that's why we put the opening warning like right there in the beginning, because we wanted to let people know like, what you're about to watch is incredibly dumb. Like, don't take it seriously. But then this person like kept watching the movie and then wrote a really terrible review, and it's like, oh, this movie is not for you. I don't know what they like, but it clearly was not their taste.
Yeah. Oh well. one bad review out of
No, yeah, it's
many
just
good ones.
there's been way more good than bad, and then the other bad review was just there wasn't anything that really stood out about it. It was just like, I didn't like this. It's like, okay, that's fine. I don't care. But
Just
that person left a scathing review.
Yeah.
And we thought it was just funny because it's like this person spent so much time writing this review and formulating these sentences, and it's like the movie's only 64 minutes long, and he said
it probably took him longer to write the review.
Yeah, I think so. Well, he said in the review that it took him 3 hours to watch the film, and it's like, how?
What?
The movie's only 64 minutes long. That means you kept having to like pause it and come back to it and pause it and come back to it.
Over analyze and yeah.
Yeah, he probably like paused it, went to the bathroom, tried to process it, come back.
Yeah. For me, if I'm watching some movie that I think sucks, I'm not going to give it 3 hours of my time. I'm going to completely abandon it and move on.
Yeah, just give up. Yeah,
just give up, tap out.
Yeah,
but he was determined to finish this movie and write a horrible review.
Anyways, I enjoyed it, and I'm going to make sure Crypto watches it very soon. He's going to dig it.
I've had a busy schedule, but I'm definitely going to get to it. I really appreciate talking to you, and it's been really fun.
Thank you. I hope you like it.
Yeah, so Amazon, people could rent or buy it on Amazon. They could get physical copies directly from you.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the best way to track you down?
Well, I mean, I'm on Facebook, just my name, nothing fancy or anything like that. Same thing with like Twitter and Instagram. I've got all those social media accounts. And really, if you just want a copy of the movie, you just go to eBay and Psycho Ape DVD. Just type that in, and you'll find it. And then, or if you just go to Google and type in Psycho Ape DVD, I'm sure the first thing that'll pop up is eBay, or Amazon too.
Amazon, yeah.
So it should be easy to find.
So, are there any other projects down the pipeline for you, or?
Yeah. Right before, I don't know what like the rules and regulations are, like where you guys are for like the whole everything's shutting down and everything like that, and then reopening and shutting down again. But right now, things are pretty much just completely shut down in Michigan. They are slowly starting to reopen restaurants again. Like they reopened restaurants to dine in last week, and movie theaters are open. You can get concessions and stuff like that, but the theater seating is still very limited. But I ran a Kickstarter last summer for my next feature, and I was hoping to start shooting it in October, but right around the same time that I wanted to start shooting, everything shut completely down again. And, we were told to keep our distance and, don't hang out in groups of more than 10 people. So I can't really shoot the movie that I'm writing right now and wanting to, hopefully shoot this year and finish this year. It has to be it's going to be a larger cast. Because I'm calling it The Cult of Frankenstein. It's just some crappy, it's going to be another like crappy low budget horror film, but like crappy on purpose, funny. I kind of want it to look and feel like a 60s or 70s, like, grindhouse junky Frankenstein film that you would have, watched at a drive-in or something like that. And I've got all these rubber Frankenstein masks that I bought where like, the neck skin, it just hangs out like a flap. And it's just like the same exact kind of special effects, where it's like super cheap. That's clearly not a Frankenstein monster. That's a guy wearing a Frankenstein mask, but it's going to be, trying to pawn it off as a Frankenstein monster. But it's going to be sort of about this cult, sort of like the Manson family or the cult from Midsommar who worship the Frankenstein monster and, steal body parts from the local morgue and bring it back to life. And it goes on a killing spree. And so I want this cult to be like a dozen people. So I want a dozen people available to, you know, wear like, because they're in a cult, I want them to like be wearing crappy Frankenstein masks and Jesus robes, and you know they're gonna be, you know, having sort of like Temple of Doom type sacrificing scenes where people get their, you know, hearts ripped out and there's chanting, but I need people there on set. You can't have a cult and have it be 3 people. That would be ridiculous. So I kind of have to wait for this band to lift so that I can shoot with like a dozen people at once in the woods and stuff like that. That's kind of the next thing that I'm working on, is this purposefully junky, you know, Frankenstein movie where, you know, people are going to be wearing rubber Frankenstein masks and, you know, worshiping Frankenstein monster, you know, as if it was like a real thing. And they're all going to be wild and crazy and taking drugs and stuff like the Manson family. And it's just going to be this totally weird, crazy Frankenstein movie that, you know, hopefully people, you know, it's going to be funny too, like Psycho Ape, where it's intentionally low budget and stupid on purpose. And so that's what I'm hoping to start shooting this summer.
Right. So basically,
that sounds really fun.
Fans of Psycho Ape, people who get it, people who like trauma type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's movies for them.
Yep.
Sounds good to me. I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm ready. Before we wrap up, I got one more quick question. If you had the budget, would you ever do a straight horror movie, just like a scary, no laughs, just a scary, gory movie?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily in my nature. I do love serious horror films, but I tend to lean just towards more comedic, just because that's my sense of humor. That's my sensibility. Is, you know, I grew up watching like Evil Dead 2 and like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. So
yeah,
I prefer comedies. I prefer funny horror films like Shaun of the Dead and stuff like that. But I can still appreciate like more serious horror films. You know, like the classics, like Frankenstein or Dracula and stuff like that. Like those don't have any humor in them. But you know, Tremors is another like favorite, where it's like that movie is so good and there are scary moments in it, but it's basically a comedy too. I think it would just be tough to make a movie with no laughs, because sometimes you just need that. You know, you need that kind of relief. Yeah. Like my favorite like slasher franchise is Friday the 13th, even though there's like clunkers in there and stuff like that. But overall, that is my favorite like slasher franchise. And you know, a lot of those are humorous too. Like Friday the 13th Part 6 is probably the funniest one in the franchise. Maybe even Part 5, because it's got that redneck couple living out in the woods. But I love that shit.
Yeah. I think the humor and horror kind of go hand in hand in a way. They like kind of need each other to work.
Yeah.
You
like,
know?
You know, I don't know what would be a good example. Like a completely humorless horror film. Like, I guess like The Exorcist doesn't really have any humor in it, but like that's not.
I found it funny. I laugh, you know. Some of her lines were hilarious, I think.
Well, and Reagan with the crucifix. I mean, some find that offensive, some might find it funny.
I don't think it's supposed to be funny. I think it's supposed to just be shocking. But like I could not see myself making something like that. You know, I really like movies made by like horror films made by, you know, George Romero, where it's like Dawn of the Dead is like one of my favorite movies of all time. It's not scary. There's pie fights with zombies in that movie. Like that movie is just so much fun. And with like Rob Zombie, I like his movies a lot too. But characters like Captain Spaulding steal the show because they're just so goddamn funny. And that's just what I gravitate towards.
Yeah. Just not it's just not trying to scare you or gross you out. Like you need more life in it. Like, I think we're kind of all on the same wavelength with it. So it's like, well, I'll just leave it at that.
I just need something, like sometimes when a movie takes itself way too seriously, especially with horror films, then it becomes ridiculous. Because with horror films, you've got these like Paranormal Activity movies that take themselves way too seriously, and they just become a joke by themselves.
Yeah.
I like the Insidious franchise a lot, and the stuff that like James Wan does with like The Conjuring. Those are like successful, I think, scary movies. But again, I don't think I could make something like that, or I'd want to make something like that. I just want to make stupid, bloody horror movie stuff. Gratuitous everything, nudity, gore, humor. That's what I like. Like that's my sensibility.
It's entertaining.
Yeah,
entertainment. That's
good
what
mix.
it is.
It's nice to have a mix of it all. I've always enjoyed the horror comedy mix, and one that I've always thought of, I go back to, is Idle Hands. I mean, it's a little bit more on the comedy side.
That was a fun movie.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a great one. And Evil Dead, you mentioned that, the Child's Play series, even the what is it? Marlon Wayans did the Haunted House films. Those are fun as hell. I mean, and they're great for a mockery of the new ghost movies, that we've had in the last 10 years. And but yeah, I mean, it kind of, people like us, we already sometimes get a laugh out of horror movies anyway, just for the effects and how over the top they are. So if you add comedy to it, it just makes the whole experience 10 times better. It just and also for outsiders who don't watch a lot of horror films, it helps them adjust to it a little easier.
Yeah, some people straight up just won't watch horror films because they think it's going to be too scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never had that problem. I mean, maybe when I was a kid, like The Shining scared the hell out of me, but I was like 8. What 8-year-old wouldn't be scared of The Shining? Like, that movie's fucked up. But like, I saw Blair Witch Project when I was like 10, and everybody was like, oh, that movie's so scary. And I just watched it and thought, that was just a very creative, cool movie. I like that movie. And those characters in it are funny when they get mad,
Yeah, and those ones aren't quite they're not too dark. I'm thinking about like the time that I went to see Rob Zombie's Halloween in the theater, and a woman was behind me with her 4-year-old son, and that's way too extreme for a kid that young. Yeah. I mean, there's some ways to introduce kids to the genre, but that's not the right door.
She probably didn't realize like how extreme a Rob Zombie movie can get when it comes to like the language and the violence. And I mean, his movies are always packed with gratuitous nudity too. Yeah. But as a fan of that style, I like that.
Yeah.
I like gratuitous violence and gratuitous nudity. But it's not for everybody, and especially not for kids. Yeah. I mean, I think the first R-rated movie I ever saw in theaters was Bride of Chucky, and I was like 8 years old, 9 years old when I saw that. But I mean, that just shows like that's my sensibility. That's what I like. That movie is extremely violent and funny as hell.
Yeah, I love it. That's honestly probably my favorite in the series.
Yeah, it's my favorite of the series too, because then they started to just become comedies, and then they sucked because they weren't even trying to be horror films anymore. They were straight up parody, and it's like, well, this sucks now. But then they tried to be full, just scary horror film again, and it's like, you've already gone all this way across the other end of the spectrum. You can't come back now.
Yeah. Well, next up, they're doing the series on Sci-Fi.
Yeah, I don't know what that's going to be like. That just might be a little bit of like there's too much now. Like, I would have been perfectly fine if they had just ended the series at Bride of Chucky, because every subsequent sequel has sucked since. Like, I hate Seed of Chucky. I hate
Curse.
whatever one came after that.
Curse and then Cult.
Cult's okay, but I haven't watched it any more than one time. Like, it used to be on Netflix, and so I watched it, and then I was just like, well, I never need to watch it again. And then, like, the remake, I saw it in the theaters, and it's like, well, that, okay, whatever. But for me, it could have just ended at Bride. Like, it's like the best of the series.
Yeah.
They just tried to milk it a little too much and ruined it.
Yeah, Bride had the best mix of comedy and horror, I'd say, out of all of them. You know?
It was,
and
the
I
best.
appreciate them trying to get the dark tone back again, as them, from what I've noticed, a good portion of the fans don't care for the humor. But, I mean, the character's always been kind of funny from the beginning.
Yeah. I think they just went way too far at a certain point with, like, Seed of Chucky. And it's like, all right, you fucked up there.
Yeah.
But now you went too far. Now it's going to be really hard to make that character scary again. I don't think it's possible. So just stop. Just don't do it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I love them. So, you know, I don't necessarily want them to stop, but I would be fine with them just kind of keeping the humor in there. You know, it's always been there. So as long as the kills are in there and he's still cracking some jokes, then I'm cool with it myself. I've always liked him. You know, he's always been my favorite horror icon just for the personality and him, you know, cracking jokes. I mean, I know that's why a lot of people like Freddy.
Yeah.
So it's always been my thing for Chucky. Like the humor adds to it, in my opinion.
I think part of like my problem too is, like, you know, when they were making those movies in, like, the, you know, late 80s, early 90s, they actually had, like, practical dolls on set, and they were making them, you know, move around with wires and puppetry. But especially in, like, the last two movies, you can tell, like, it's just a CGI doll, and it's like, fuck that. Get that shit out of here. Like, don't even do that. You know, if you can't have, like, a real doll on the set walking around, then don't make this movie, because that looks like shit.
Yeah, I'm not 100%, but I thought I read something about they might actually be trying to use more practical effects for the upcoming show. And the show is supposed to be dropping this year. I mean, who knows with COVID and everything.
I'm sure the production was halted last year.
Oh yeah.
They probably intended to start shooting last year, but couldn't.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just weird because the writer for, like, all the movies except the remake, he's been the same writer since the first film. You know, and he directed Seed and Curse and Cult. But it's like, all right, so you've written all of them, and you've directed the three worst ones. So, what the hell is this show going to be? Because he developed the show, and he's writing and directing it, and it's like, I don't trust you. Like, I just don't trust you.
It's going to be on Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
So it's gonna turn into one of, like, the quirky sci-fi weird series.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that they're going to get the biggest budget in the world. I can't imagine they're going to get away with the same level of, like, you know, violence that, like, Walking Dead gets away with on AMC. I guess that's to be seen, but, you know, I remember watching the Child's Play movies on Sci-Fi back in the 90s, and they were cut to shit. So it's like, now you're going to give me a neutered television series? I don't want that.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I think we've taken enough of your time this evening. Everybody, track down Psycho Ape, buy a copy, or go rent it on Amazon. You could get it straight from Addison Binek. And tell them again, you got a website or anything for the movie? Or
no website. I mean, it's just available on eBay, Amazon, and then I can be contacted on Facebook very easily.
Yeah, so just there you go. Find it on eBay. Search Psycho Ape, and it'll pop up. And buy a copy, and buy your neighbor a copy. And
yep, tell your friends about it. Spread it around.
That'd be very appreciated.
Yeah, well, hey, thanks for coming and hanging out. And sorry we had a little technical glitch in the middle there.
I hope it
breaking internet
didn't
but
affect any of their recording.
No, we should be good. But hey,
okay.
Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for inviting me, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, thanks again to Addison Binek for joining us and telling us about Psycho Ape. We both enjoyed the movie. We had fun with it. Not to speak for you, but
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed, just hearing him kind of talk about how the film was made. I know Steve and I really are into that kind of thing, and really like film buffs, film nerds. Like we enjoy the making and the process, and how the cake is made, or whatever you want to say. So it's cool to learn about like the special effects or how many bananas were used, and I'm sure you guys enjoyed that part. It's talking about that, and I'm sure you caught Addison's little part in the film. So it's nice that Addison really put some heart into this movie, into this project. You could tell that he and the crew all had fun doing it. That seems to be the key word when I think about this movie, is fun. Like wow, I bet they had a great time making the movie. And that's the thing, is like, you've got all these actors coming in and you've only have a certain amount of time to work with them. I mean, they've done a million things before this movie. Like, it's work, but you also want to have a good time doing it. So it looks like they had a great time making this one.
For sure. It's just like with any job, you want to kind of make the best of it. So it don't, especially in like acting and filmmaking, it's work. It's hard work, but you still want to allow yourself to enjoy it. But yeah, if you guys dug hearing about Addison and the making of the movie and all that good stuff, track down Psycho Ape. Like he mentioned, it's available on eBay. Just search Psycho Ape, or you could find him on social media and order a copy directly from him. So if it sounds interesting, check out Psycho Ape. And if you dig us, you can always go to Steve Crypto or buy me a coffee page, buymeacoffee.com/Steve Crypto. I got a little ahead of myself. And head over to Fright Rags and use our code Steve Crypto 10.
Yep, all one word, Steve Crypto 10. Go get you some Dexter merch. Go get you some merch from They Live. They have some new winter hats, from like Jaws and Child's Play, Night of the Living Dead. They have the Evil Dead collection. They have, I mean, if you're a horror fan, they have something for you there. They definitely do. I got my Evil Dead shirt in the mail not long ago, and it's one of my favorite shirts that I own now. I love it.
Nice. Well, hey, I thank you guys for listening. We've been the Steve and Crypto Show, and we're coming up on our 20th episode soon. So that's exciting. Yeah. Maybe we'll try to do something special.
Who knows?
We'll see. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yep. Thanks. Catch you next time.